Okay, we'll move on to the study sessions. And the first item that is on there, we will wait until 9:30 to do that with the school district. So I'll move to number 3 because I do not see the Beckers either. So that's at 10 o'clock. So Chief Golden.
The first item I have is a email which was sent to the wrong email finally came to us. It's our yearly subscription payment to Caliber Public Safety Colossus Incorporated for $36,093.25. It's for our RMS. They have a new employee. They sent the email to Mike Terry. And thank goodness somebody thought about looking that up. And we just need to get this approved if possible today so we can get the payment out. If not, we can wait a week.
Okay, we'll come back to 3.1 at the end of the session.
Okay.
Okay.
The second item I have is I've been speaking with BPU General Manager Tim Mayer, and I've discussed expanding the PD range at 1486 17th Avenue. We went to the range, we put markers out, we walked the perimeter. He wrote up a small document, which is basically still the same rules as that we have. If BPU does expand, we'll have to look at a different place in the future. He says that he's not planning on anything for 50 years, but if it happens, we'll have to come up with something. But I just wanted to bring this up, and then next week, I believe Tim and I will bring it to commission.
Okay.
Okay?
How do you plan to use this expansion?
The expansion is going to allow, we're going to go deeper with the range and a little wider. So we're going to have a stagnant area for us to do our yearly qualifications, standing on concrete and just shooting at stagnant targets. We're also going to be able to put a tactical where the officers can move through different scenarios with simulation rounds, with live rounds. And then on the far left side, we're going to put a long range rifle for our car patrol rifles, as well as our anti-sniper training for SRT. And we're also going to flatten out the land for our hiring process. Eventually, one day, maybe put a training building out there.
Okay.
But yeah, just a good expansion and something that the PD and SO will continue partnering with.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Translate SRT for everybody.
Special response team. It's our joint SWAT team between the SO and the PD and a couple of the small agencies within McPherson County.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Do you expect any cost to be associated with this year?
Well, I talked to Wayne, who graciously gave us some fencing. So the fencing is our first priority to get up. Hutton is delivering a whole bunch of dirt for us to use for the berm. And then cost would be pouring the concrete, which I've talked to Jeff about, and we're going to talk a little more about. It's probably a 10,000 range for doing that for the concrete. And then the moving poles, I'll talk with Tim with BPU about helping us out with that. So expense is not terribly bad. And it's going to be well worth it. We're going to be able to do a lot more training.
Good.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, we're down to CVB, Joni Rainey.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'll be quick, even though I have 13 items, but I'll be quick. Call me
You
Jeff.
got 13 items. Remember, there's 11 of them that will not be heard today.
Oh. Well, okay, so we'll just go with the first one. Okay, so I have 12 grants.
I'm not counting all your sub-paragraphs.
Mhm.
Okay. So I have 12 grants. We met this month on February 10th, the CVB board did, and they approved 12 grants. The first one is a $750 visitor attraction grant. And I attached all the grants as well, so if you want to look through them. For McPherson High School baseball, they're having a tournament here on June 25th, 26th, 27th. So that will create overnight stays in our motels, so we're excited about that one. The second one is I'm going to bring them all next week if this is okay, but I'll just kind of read through them. Is another $750 grant for McPherson High School, and it's for the Caden Schroeder 18 and under baseball tournament. It's a 2-day tournament held here in McPherson. That too will bring overnight stays. The The third one is a $500 visitor attraction grant for McPherson Main Street for Shop the Night Away. That's a downtown event. That will help with sales tax, so that's a good thing. And then a $5,000 visitor attraction grant for McPherson Main Street for the Home for the Holidays promotion, and that takes place November 1st through December 31st, 2021 in McPherson, and brings in a lot of out-of-town guests. Also a $1,000 visitor attraction grant for Kansas Kids Sports for the Central Kansas Spring Classic Softball Tournament. And that's a 3-day tournament held in April in McPherson, and that will bring in a lot of overnight stays. Another $1,000 visitor attraction grant for Kansas Kids Sports for the Central Kansas Boxer Blowout Softball Tournament to be held May 21st, 22nd, and 23rd in McPherson. Also a lot of overnight stays. A $1,000 visitor attraction grant for the Kansas Kids Sports for the Mike Beard Memorial Softball Tournament to be held June 12th and 13th in McPherson. Overnight stays for that one as well, I believe. Also a $1,000 visitor attraction grant for the Kansas Kids Sports 5th Annual Central Kansas Showdown Softball Tournament to be held June 25th, 26th, and 27th in McPherson. That too will bring in a lot of overnight stays. And ninth is a $1,000 visitor attraction grant for Kansas Kids Sports for the Great Plains Championship Tournament to be held July 22nd through the 27th. So that's a 5-day huge tournament. That will bring in a lot of overnight stays as well. And then two more, a $500 visitor attraction grant, or three more, sorry, for the 5th Annual Fall Classic Softball Tournament to be held September 26th. That's a 1-day tournament, so that is just $500. And then another $500 visitor attraction grant for the Kansas Kids Sports 3rd Annual Independent Team and Club Championship in October on the 10th. And then lastly, a $750 visitor attraction grant for the McPherson American Legion Post 24 for their 5th District Annual Convention to be held in April on the 9th, 10th, and 11th in McPherson. And that definitely is going to have overnight stays. So that's all the grants. I'd like to bring those next week, if that's okay.
Fine.
Okay. Is that okay, Johnetta? We have that all budgeted.
Do you anticipate any of these being canceled because of COVID?
Not at this time. And last year, if they're canceled, then they just don't get the money, then we saved that money and didn't
Yeah.
give it out.
Curious.
So
Okay.
not that I know of. We'll see. The first event is the American Legion in April, and they're going forward with it. So
Mhm.
they have, I think, 25 or 30 rooms reserved at the Holiday Inn. So that's great. Glad to see those motel stays. Okay, and then next, I'm planning our July 4th celebration. And besides the fireworks this year, I just like to add one more thing, which is King Midas Band to play music before the fireworks. I'm not going to go do the snow cones or the face painting this year due to COVID, but I thought it'd be nice maybe to add the band. And since we won't be having a band for All Schools Day, I thought it'd be nice to have King Midas. They bring a nice crowd, and they can social distance there as they listen to the band. So the cost for that is $16.50.
You bring it next week?
I'd like to bring that next week as well.
Thank you.
Okay.
Do you want to say anything about the planning you guys are doing for the 150 too? Do you want to just mention that we've started that?
Yes, we've started meeting, and we're going to start meeting. Well, we were going to meet on the third Thursday. Which Thursday was it? Second Thursday, but we're going to change that to the second Wednesday. Did you all get my email? And we meet at the community building at noon, from noon to 1. And we had our first meeting this month. So I think I sent out emails to police and fire. I added those both.
And just so the entire commission knows, the 150th birthday of McPherson is next year. So
Yes, 2022. So I think we have a great group of people involved in this
Good.
project. So we're excited about that.
Mhm.
Anything else?
Hey, Joni.
Yes.
I was looking through these grants. Has there ever been any consideration for a disc golf tournament here? I know Wayne might have some feedback on that. We've got a great course here now,
Mhm.
and I just wondered if that was a possibility.
You bet.
Yeah, we
bet.
would give a grant, but we're not the ones to set up the tournament.
Yeah, right.
Right. So
We could set up a tournament.
Huh?
We can set up a tournament as well.
that's, if city wants to sponsor a tournament, then it would have to be Wayne and you
Okay,
bring us the tournament specs,
gotcha. Thank you.
okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Jeff Woodward.
One of the three heating units in the biosolids building at the wastewater treatment facility seized and caught fire. In fact, during the cold spell, they have three different heating units and all three of them went down. The other two should be repairable though. But this one's damaged beyond repair. The exact replacement was available on Granger for $1354.44. The heater's a Markle Products electric wall and ceiling heating unit, 15 kilowatt, 480 volt three-phase unit. Due to the urgency of the situation, the unit was ordered. I'd like to go back and get it approved today if at all possible.
Okay.
Guys actually had to go to United Rental and rent space heaters to get them through. So.
Okay.
The second one, as we talked about a few weeks ago, the makeup air in the Headswork building has been troublesome since it was built. We have since had Haven Engineering out to see if the existing unit can be repaired. Due to the rusting components, it's no longer serviceable. I'd like to avoid repeating the fiasco from the original design and installation by getting a design engineer to help us. LST Consulting Engineers PA has been highly recommended by Pete Earls, and I've received a design proposal in the amount of $2,200. I'd like to bring that next week if I could.
Hey, Jeff, just for the sake of our audience, what is makeup air?
Well, it's raw sewage has gives off gases that are actually
Right.
not only explosive but deadly. And so the makeup air just exchanges outside air with inside air.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
Okay,
Okay, bring it. Yes.
okay, public lands and facilities.
I have one item. On December 14th, 2020, sealed bids were advertised through local and social media platforms with 2 responses. Trailers were also offered internally to, and no departments really wanted them. So we have McPherson Trailer submitted bids for one stand-up ramp trailer at $125 and one tilt trailer for $329. Todd Peach of South Hutchison submitted bids for one stand-up ramp trailer for $200 and one tilt trailer for $300. And staff wants to accept the bids for McPherson Trailer for one tilt trailer at $329 and accept the seal bid from Todd Peach of South Hutchison for one stand-up ramp trailer at $200.
Bring it. Bring it next week.
Okay.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Janetta.
Did we charge sales tax?
Do we charge sales tax?
Did we? Or
No.
we need to,
We don't charge sales tax, but we don't pay sales tax either.
we do if we sell something that needs to be charged to sales tax.
And I can talk to you offline about what exception may apply.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
Jeff will call you. Okay, we still have almost 15 minutes before the presentation by the school district. Okay. We are still waiting for everybody from USD 418. We do have Stephanie Meyer on the call and Dustin Avey. Will there be a third person from Kansas?
Kevin Gresher going to be joining us. That's it.
Yes, Kevin should be here as well.
Okay. Does anybody have anything that they want to talk about before once we have Kevin on the line, I think we can go ahead and go forward. You just let him in? Okay.
Is that
I'll
everybody?
say hello to Stephanie, to Dustin, and to Kevin. There he is. And we have everybody on. We have Superintendent Silo here and also Assistant Superintendent McPhee.
Good.
And so we have everybody here. And what we want to talk about today is the vision plan to extend the sales tax and the bond issue and what repairs will be done according to the staff. So with that, I think we can go ahead and go forward with that. And I'll just ask you to come up here. You can go ahead and say who you are for the audience that's online, and then we'll go
Yeah.
from there.
Well, first and foremost, thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this really unique opportunity for what we would see as a great way to for us to take care of the facility needs that we have in our school district, but also to partner with the city to make the needed improvements, hopefully to the broader impact of our whole community. And so I'll just introduce myself. I'm Shiloh Vincent. I'm the current superintendent of McPherson Public Schools. This is my first year. I'm serving in that capacity, and COVID aside, and actually COVID included, it's been an absolute joy to get to participate and serve in this way. And so I know each of you has experienced your own struggles throughout this whole year, and yet the decisions that you make sitting at this table still gets to further the cause of the city. So thank you all for the work that you're doing. Know that it's appreciated. I would like to also just introduce a couple of folks that are with me that will be speaking a little bit. Mr. McAfee is in his first year as assistant superintendent here in McPherson as well. And so he probably will not be speaking unless you have specific questions, but he's played a huge part in bringing this all together as well. And then Luke Amen with Hutton Construction will talk with you a little bit about just some scope of work and some of the work that he's done to help kind of bring this all together as well. But have our partners from the DLR Group, who is the architecture firm that we're working with. Can you hear me okay?
You might just talk a little bit louder.
A little bit louder? Okay, or more, maybe more directly into it. And we have Stephanie Meyer. There we go. Yeah, adjust it. Stephanie Meyer and Kevin Gresher with the DLR Group, and then Dustin Navy is with Piper Sandler to talk about some of the ways that this can all come together and actually finance this project. So I'll just give a little bit of a background, and then I want to turn it over to Stephanie to talk to you about really the process that we followed to get to where we're at, to give you a kind of an overview of where we're at, and then how we see this partnership working. So dating back into the 17-18 school year, McPherson Public Schools conducted a facility study. That study was reported to the board, and at that time, it was clear that we needed to get the services of an architecture firm and a construction manager at risk involved in helping us to make the best determination possible for how we address all of our needs. What you see here is really, and what you'll hear is really the culmination of a lot of work across our community, across stakeholders from within our school system, staff and students, and community folks, representative of all of McPherson Public, all of McPherson, Kansas, who have contributed to this work over multiple community visioning activities, and ultimately, most recently, soliciting the input of through a random phone call survey, just soliciting the input of the broader community as well, ultimately to help us pull together the very best plan that we see possible for USD 418 in McPherson. So I'm certainly available to help answer any questions at the end of this, but as we get into the presentation, I'll turn it over to Stephanie Meyer to share with you a little bit about the process, what the scope of work actually looks like, and what kind of our next steps are. Thank you all.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everyone. And it's good to see everyone this morning and excited to share a little bit more about where we are in the process and moving forward. So if I could be enabled to share my screen, I will open up the slide deck for you. Maybe. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, so as Shiloh mentioned, the process has been going on for quite some time now, and we've reached the point where we are in a position to move forward and wanted to walk through some of those steps. First, we want to talk about the visioning committee team. So getting this started at the end of 2019, we met with the superintendent, we met with the school board, and really came up with two different visioning groups that we feel like would provide a really great and balanced perspective of reviewing what the facility needs are, what the community needs are, and really coming up with a plan forward to be presented to the board. So on the community side, you'll see the list of community members who've been engaged here for the last year and a half, and then you'll also see a group of educators and students. So they met separately along a track for several meetings so they could kind of digest the information and come up with their own thoughts and ideas. And then we brought them together here in these last few meetings, really, again, with the goal of they each have such a unique perspective in terms of the buildings. We wanted them to be able to come together to reach an ultimate conclusion, which they have, and we're going to share today. So a little bit more about the timeline. As you can see, the community group has had 9 meetings now, and that process really included first and foremost, looking at all of the facilities, talking about the condition that each facility is in, doing a little bit of dreaming and discovering and coming up with ideas on their own. We do a great game where they get to kind of build their own scope of work. So did a lot of that, really just a lot of information, a lot of conversations and dialogue, digging in what would be the best path forward and what would be a great, fiscally responsible solution that would utilize the great resources that the district and the community already have. So you'll see there was a little bit of a stop there, like most things for COVID, but restarted here towards the end of last year. So a big piece of that you'll see after workshop 8 in December, the community group was really close to a solution. I think that they had refined their ideas quite a bit, but wanted to engage the community more. So at that point, they asked the board, and the board approved going out to a community survey. So as Superintendent Vinson referred to in January, we utilized a third-party vendor, Excellence K-12, to survey your community. They did a statistically valid survey of about 300 folks in McPherson, and the results were very good. So I'll share just a highlight of some of those results. So we talked about the school district as a whole and how they felt about how things were going, and those are very positive, and I'd be happy to share this full report with you. But a big piece of it here is a few pieces of the scope that we wanted to dig into. So as you can see here, the security upgrades, deferred maintenance, the elementary school projects here at the top are very highly supported. That was kind of a no-brainer, for lack of a better term. The community was really supportive of those ideas, safety and security at the elementary schools. The next is a middle school conversation, and there really was a lot of conversation with the community group and with the educator group about this concept of creating a 5-6 center. So shifting away from sort of a traditional 6-8 middle school to maybe repurpose that existing middle school into a 5-6 center, and then build a new 7-8 on the high school site next to the high school. So we tested that idea out a little bit. As you can see, very favorable responses as well. Next is the high school improvements. Again, a good response there. And then just lastly, this concept about creating a campus environment, which again would be kind of building a new middle school on the high school site with renovations to the high school as well. So you can see all of those numbers are very favorable. The community overall, I think, was very supportive of the direction that the group is heading into. And so part of that is the question everybody hates to ask, right, is how much would you pay for those kinds of upgrades? So we call it the tax tolerance level. And you'll see here, we start with a higher level. So the 184 a year would be for about $115 million of scope. So you can see, even with the highest amount, we have 57% of your community win surveys said that they would support or strongly support that option. And then the lower amount, which equates to about $75 million a year, is in the mid 70s in support. So I think this is great. Again, this is a survey that was done without any community education about the need really at all. It was just kind of our base level survey to get an understanding of where your community is in terms of how they feel about the facilities right now. So very positive. So we took that to the visioning group and we took that to the Board of Education as well. And from there, the visioning group really set about refining scope and making some decisions about moving forward to the board. So we want to talk to you a little bit, obviously, about what that scope looks like. So to do that, I'm going to kick it over to Kevin Gresher, who will walk you through kind of the refining that they did. Kevin?
Thanks, Stephanie. I think the big things here are regarding this deferred maintenance and some of the safety security items. Those were kind of overarching for all of the school buildings. One of the, I think that I'll just walk through each one of the schools, give you the big picture items, and then we'll have some graphics too. But at the elementary schools, there are very specific items that need to be taken care of at the elementary schools, and boilers, things that are not traditionally going to be on a long-term facilities plan, but have reached end of life and are now in need of replacement. So those are the HVAC items. And then there are some, and then as you can see, the green indicates all new secure entries at these schools. We do have one at Washington, but not as much at the other three elementary schools. And then, as Stephanie identified, is that one of the focuses is the potential of getting better facilities for the 7th and 8th graders. And after looking at the options on what to do at the existing middle school, the determination came that we need to build new for those kids and for sports, athletics specifically, but also just for space in a classroom. So the concept of turning this into a 5-6 center, relieving a little bit of space at the elementary schools so you can do collaborative areas, maker spaces, inquiry-based learning kinds of things at the elementaries and at the 5-6 center, as well as considering the district office move and then maintaining the central kitchen in this same location, adding parking, and then there'd be playgrounds also for that 5-6 grade level. And at the high school, this is where the consideration has been, and this became a both educational and community conversation over the idea of the students at the 7th and 8th grade level being separated from high school students, the 9 through 12, but yet having other amenities on the site for middle school opportunities for students, both academically and athletically. So those are the primary focuses on the three levels.
Great. So as I said, once we kind of refined what the scope was, we took it to that community group and did some polling with them about whether they were ready to move forward with different pieces of it. So we started with that elementary school option. 100% of the group was supportive of keeping that on board. So that one for sure made it through. Then went to the next kind of most popular, including the high school additions and renovations on the existing site. And I will say there was some conversation about the concept of moving to a new site and building an entirely new high school. And the community group was really overwhelmingly not in favor of that. They felt like you had a great asset in the existing resources at the high school, particularly with the performing arts space and the roundhouse. And they really wanted to maintain that tradition of the community, but also bring the rest of the spaces up to date. So as you can see, the community group was very supportive with that concept of the additions and renovations on the existing site. So then we got into the middle school conversation, and this was a little bit of a back and forth. Honestly, it was a bit more split earlier in the process between the educator group and the community group about the grade reconfiguration, which is, of course, a big topic, but there are a lot of great reasons. A lot of other communities are doing 5-6 centers right now. So we asked them about that concept, and you can see here they agreed that moving forward with the 5-6 center on the existing middle school site, renovations there, and then a new 7-8 at the high school was their preference, and a lot of conversation about the opportunities that would build, and educational opportunities, developmental opportunities for the students as well. So, move forward with that. We had a little bit of a conversation about whether or not, because of the size of it, so it's about $112.8 million, because of the size of it, whether it would be prudent to break it into 2 questions. And the community, as you'll see, really felt like this is a sort of an all-encompassing solution and really a long-term solution, and felt like breaking it into a couple of pieces would hurt part of it, and couldn't frankly determine which piece was the sort of non-important piece, for lack of a better term, that you could break out of it. They felt like all of it was really important and wanted to be sure that they were touching every kiddo who comes through the district. And so not a lot of desire for that 2 questions. And then we asked them if they felt comfortable making a recommendation, which obviously they do, and the board will see tonight. So it will be much of this conversation as well. I also wanted to share that with you. The community group, if they were here, I think they would tell you they feel excited and very comfortable with where the scope is, and ready to talk to the community about that opportunity. So we'll be doing some of that. So beyond that, we wanted to talk a little bit about timeline. So beyond even the bond and beyond the community group, this is really, as I'm sure you're aware from any construction process, a huge process outside of even this, and a lot goes into it on both sides. So I want to turn it over to Luke from Hutton, who will talk a little bit about the overall timeline.
Okay, so I know there's a lot of pieces on here to look at. And this is actually a 2-page timetable, but it was really just made to demonstrate the overall length of this project, how long the school has been invested in this. I think later, correct me, Stephanie, we get into some more definition on kind of all the small squares. The bullets in there are just a single day date that I think Dustin will talk about. Those are more the formal dates for applications of a election vote. I do put, you'll notice on the very top, it's hard to see there, but there are 3 bullets there for the city of McPherson that talk about some of those dates also that would revolve around a sales tax election. Do you guys have any questions on this that I can specifically answer? I know it's hard to see. Before you get to all those bullets, it's really the history of the facilities report, community visioning meetings. And after those bullets are where we would go into a design and construction time period. I'll just let you know at the very beginning, we were June 1st in 18. And at the end of construction, that would be June 4th in 2024. Let's talk about the next page on there. I think really, Stephanie, that just talks more about DLR's and Hutton's role in the project.
Absolutely. And it might, Luke, be helpful, Kevin, if you want to provide a few comments about what the design process looks like beyond bond approval. Great. I think you're muted.
You want to say something about design construction, what's entailed in that?
No, just letting you guys know. I mean, unless you have questions on it specifically, I think Kevin can speak to how the design process will proceed. If there are questions, I can talk about Hutton's role in that or in the budgeting phase, but.
Stephanie, you need to advance your slide.
Okay.
No.
I think the second page is maybe cut off here.
So I on the design side, we go through a process. Some of you may be familiar with the design process of any project, but we're going to go through a period of time, especially at the high school level that will take us about 12 months. And it'll be a schematic design early on where we'll put together teams at the high school and at the other locations at the elementaries and at the middle school. And we'll try to work these concurrently so that we're working sequentially because the dominoes will have to fall where if we are going to move the 7, 8 graders to the high school, we've got to have a spot for them to go before we can actually move the 5th and 6th graders. So, and then the kind of musical chairs that'll happen at the high school where we'll move students into new portions of a building while we're still probably under construction. So the process is going to take a year, 3 months of design, 3 months of design development, which is where we spend our time really focusing on where everything is in the building, working with the staff and students and administration to make sure those are all appropriately done. And then the construction documents phase, which is another 4-month period where we'll put together the documents that will be what Luke and his team will work on to do the construction. So that's the short version.
What we're talking about, Kevin, is that if this all goes forward and is approved in June, then that will take you to 2022 of actually design, construction, all that 12-month that you're talking about. And then from June 22 to 2024 will be actual construction in different phases to make your stage moves. Is that correct?
Exactly. And there could be some time in there that we could do some site work and some demolition or preparation a little bit early so that construction can get started a little bit sooner. We haven't done a project in the last 5 years that hasn't got some site work done and then a steel package put out on a project just so we're ready to go when it needs to happen. And that'll be with things that we'll work out with Hutton to make sure that things are there on time. There's no delays.
Okay. Is there any questions on the actual plan of construction? Okay. Yeah, there's no real questions on the strategy to go forward with the building. What the city commission needs is the timeline and what is needed to finance this project.
So perfect transition, Mayor Brown. I appreciate that. So with that in mind, I will kick it over to Dustin Avey with Piper Sandler, who will walk you through the finance and timing details.
Thanks, Stephanie. Good morning, Mayor, Commissioners. Again, appreciate the opportunity to visit with all of you this morning. So really the financial plan related to the project, I really just wanted to spend a few minutes kind of thinking about and reviewing some of the highlights. You know, this conversation started probably over a year ago. And first of all, I think it's important to recognize that the city's willingness to have these conversations and think about the long-term strategy and how it helps the school district and also the city, I think is very, very impressive. There are a few communities who have done this in the past, and those projects have worked out very well. And for the city and the school district to view this as a community project and a solution, I think says a lot about McPherson and its community. The sales tax component of what's being reviewed, and Steph, if you go to the next slide, please, if you don't mind. Actually, we'll go one more if you do. So this kind of just provides an overview and a summary of the financial impact. And as you can imagine, the facility group or the community group spent a lot of time reviewing a facility solution that made the most long-term sense for the school district. A part of that conversation also was affordability, right? And so to do what was necessary to make a long-term improvement, we also had a look at what the financial solutions and financial scenarios were. And there's really kind of two approaches, right? There's an approach that says we're going to do this without any sort of sales tax assistance. And there's another approach that says if we include sales tax assistance, it reduces the overall mill levy requirement to voters. And so as we reviewed this scenario and these approaches, I think that for the most part, people felt that this financing plan, which includes sales tax, aligned with the overall objective is how do we do this right the first time while trying to make this as affordable as possible to patrons in the city and the school district. And Mayor Brown, feel free to jump in on this too. You were instrumental in this conversation. And also, the sales tax component is intended to be a no sales tax increase, right? So really what's being proposed is really just an extension of the city's existing sales tax and repurposing that, half going to the school district for educational purposes and half remaining with the city for city purposes. The sales tax would not begin until the current half-cent sales tax expired, I believe, October 1st of 2023.
All right.
So what's being proposed here is the current sales tax continues on through 2023. And what would be asked by voters is once that sales tax terminates, we will replace those existing sales taxes with a 1% sales tax, which keeps the overall sales tax rate the same within the city. We're just reallocating the purpose differently. You can see, go ahead, Mayor.
I would go ahead and say right now, we have 2 half-cent sales taxes. One we just renewed. Then we have one that will expire in October 1, 2023. Both of those are special. Both of those have been designed for streets, drainage, and miscellaneous. Okay? And any project committed to the 2023, we will wrap that up. What will change is we will move it to 1 cent general sales tax so we can have the longer bond period for the school district, and they can have a 30-year bond. At that point, we would have an agreement between the school district and the city to split into the school district taking half and the city keeping half of this. What that would mean is that the school district would get $1,450,000 something, let's say $1.5 million a year on that thing. So over the period of time, that's equivalent to $45 million for them. What that means, as you can see in Dustin's chart, is it saves the property taxpayers 5.5 mils of that. By saving 5.5 mils and transferring it to sales tax, the sales tax, well, to some degree is regressive. We have a very beneficial situation in McPherson in that we are a marketing hub. And we have a very strong pull factor. And traditionally, we have used the rule of thumb of 30% of the sales tax collected is paid by people that would not be in the city itself, or for the most part, the school district taxing area is a little bit bigger, but they would get advantage of 30% of that sales tax, which is about $500,000 a year, being paid by outside people. So over a period of time, you are getting other people to help you fund the school using this method. So that's what we did. We talked about it in our spring retreat, and we will have to talk about it more as we go through this process. But this is why it's in a study session today, to lay out the whole plan And then we will have to have a legal agreement if we go forward between the city and the school district, and we'll have to have two different things on the ballot. We will have to have our change for the sales tax on the ballot. And we'll also have to have a vote of the people to accept the school district visioning plan of what they want to go forward to have all this done basically in the time frame up till 2024. So there is an advantage to trying to ease the property tax in this method, including sales tax, but ease the property tax increase by 5.5 mils, and then to have an interlocal agreement. And if we do all this, as I said, it's not free from the city. So we would hope that we can get a piece of property given to us by the school district to build a fire station on the north end of town that doesn't have to cross a railroad track. And it would also have a benefit to the people that are outside the city but inside the school district, because we would be able to give both industry that's outside the city and residents outside the city in a 5-mile radius a break in their fire insurance to either their homeowners or their commercial plants. So there is going to be a somewhat of a savings for them. Industrially, it may be enough to offset a big part of their property tax. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Justin.
Yeah, no, great explanation, Mayor. And again, really, as you can see, it's a pretty powerful way to come together as a partnership and try to figure out how to make this an affordable solution. And so you can see in this analysis, really the mill levy requirement, right? The mill levy increase with sales tax is about 9.85 mils. Again, what that means to voters, right? So it's about $14.16 per month for somebody with a $150,000 home, or $169 per year. So the next 3 pages just give you kind of the dollar impact for both residential properties, commercial properties, and then also ag land properties, which is that last page. So I won't go through all the numbers and details with respect to every single type of property or value, but it's there for your information. As the mayor alluded to, the last page just kind of gives you a timeline of events. And again, we're working towards a June 8th election. So thinking about this, working backwards, there's a couple of procedural things that are required at the school district level and also at the city level. And so this timeline kind of gives you a what the procedures and process would be at both the city level and the school district level. But from a school district level, to take action for a June 8th special election, we really need to make a decision at the school board level the week of March 8th. And so we obviously, that's the intent of today, is to have the conversation with the city and the school district with respect to what the facility recommendation was from the community group. And then allow obviously both the city and the school district time to process and review and evaluate the proposal. The school board would come back at a March 8th meeting and further discuss and, if appropriate, make and finalize and approve the facility plan. They would then proceed with taking action to call the election via a resolution sometime the week of March 8th. That resolution would actually put then the question of issuing bonds to fund the proposed project on a June 8th special election ballot. Once they make that decision, obviously we'll be in contact with the city to let them know that number one, they've approved the project, and number two, they're formally making requests to the city for the sales tax, at which time the city then can take appropriate action at a meeting either on March 15th or March 22nd to approve the appropriate sales tax documents to put that sales tax on the same ballot on June 8th. So on June 8th, there for city voters, so for voters within the city limits, there'll be 2 questions on the ballot, one for the school bond project approval and one for the sales tax approval. For those that are within the school district but outside of the city limits, there'll just be 1 question on the ballot, which is just the school district election. So Mayor, I'm glad to answer any questions about that timeline.
Any questions from anyone here? The only thing that I would say is if you could send me these screens that have been presented both from Stephanie and Dustin today, I will distribute them tomorrow morning after you have had your meeting tonight.
Perfect. I can send that over to you this morning. Yeah.
Pardon?
I'll send that over to you right after this meeting.
Okay, and anything from Dustin, if he will send it, I will send it out on tomorrow morning, Tuesday, to give you a chance to talk to your other people. And then you will distribute, I'm sure, your items tonight to them. Okay. And from there, then we will have to meet with the city attorney's guidance to how this is put together. We have some preliminary work, but we will start to work on it in study sessions so that it is not that much time when you think about we're shooting for March 8th date, and there's a little bit of time lag in there that we may be able to get to the 15th or whatever if we had some discussions on some things. But basically, we're by the middle of March, we have to know where each of us is going. Okay,
Mayor, I have a question.
go ahead.
This question is more for Dustin. And Dustin, I'm John Adam, the city treasurer, finance director. And just have a question as it relates to the bond issue. I'm assuming you have looked at the estimated revenues and that meets the debt schedule for the school district. And what revenue figure were you using? If I could ask.
Yeah, great question. So we actually have information looking back historically at what the sales tax trends have been for the city in the last 5 years. And so when we look at sales and use tax based upon 2020 data, a half-cent sales tax generates about $1,723,000 on a half-cent sales tax. And that's both sales and use tax. In the financial plan, we don't assume any sort of growth in sales tax. We assume that that number is consistent, even though there may be growth or decline in any given year. But also in the school district plan of finance, we keep a cushion in their bond fund to manage any sort of shortfalls that may happen over time.
Just one more thing, a question. And the event that it didn't pass, it is being written in such a way that we'll still maintain our sales tax, and maybe not necessarily a question. It's more of a statement to let the commissioners know that there's protections in there in the event that this wasn't to pass, though we obviously hope it will. There's that piece out there. And
Yes, if this does not pass, and we need both things to pass. If one or the other doesn't pass, we will still be on the same sales tax track that we are currently in.
Right. And I'm sure that's going to be a big question to a lot of voters, is if it doesn't pass, where do we go? What happens? So on and so forth. So we need to be cognizant of that and make sure that everybody understands that going in. And the other thing is that the mayor elated to was the 30% of the sales tax is paid from John Doe that comes into town and buys a loaf of bread and or buys a vehicle or whatever. And that's when we passed our last half-cent sales tax, that was a big eye-opener to not only the citizens of McPherson, but to everybody that was involved in it. And I think that's really important to make sure that that's explained as well. Okay?
Anybody else have a question? Okay, do you need anything tonight from me, or are you good without me? Okay, that's good. Okay,
Okay. All right.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dustin, Stephanie, and Kevin for being on, and have a safe drive down here for tonight.
Thank you for the opportunity. Good to see you guys.
Good to see you. Bye. Thank you, Luke. Okay. We're to the 10 o'clock item, and the 10 o'clock people are here. And that item is occupancy at 122 North Main. And I think primarily what can happen in terms of a building permit and where second exit location is. So with that, you're welcome to come up, give us your name, and go ahead and say what you want to say.
Yeah,
right here.
the microphone, you need to be able to speak in. Yeah, we need to be able to hear in the microphone for the meeting.
Welcome back to the future. Yeah.
Over there where they have the
You
podium. in the
can, you
middle.
can put your coat on the chair if you want.
Yeah. Oh, just leave it here. Drop it on the floor. I don't recognize some of these guys in suits.
Okay, go ahead, Brenda.
All right, I have, basically, it's the occupancy that's under question for this building. The architect has drawn it up to cram packet full, and which is not the intent of the person that can't do that, can I? Here, pass those around. So this is the seating layout. I mean, it's not any much different than what the architect did, other than the number of seats. It has allowed, does TJ, do you want one?
No, I have one. You have it?
A little.
Yeah, take one.
After some discussion with Brennan of how we can get this thing going, he's doing it, based on square footage. I, however, have been informed, as I find it, that there is another way to determine occupancy, and that's basically boils down to about chair count, how many chairs you have in there. I think the individual that we bought the building from, we were curious as to why he hadn't put in another exit because of the size of the building that it is. And we never did get the permit. Did you look to see if there were? So he never pulled a permit at all. He bought it in 2011. Okay, so basically the person we bought it for never got a building permit. Well, it went from dirt cheap banners to daylight. He
Can you
had,
talk in the microphone?
oh,
Ryan?
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
This one?
Yeah.
Sorry. Went from dirt cheap banners into Daylight Donuts. He had 32 chairs, I know, because I tried to sell them. Couldn't do it. And so looking at the codes, it says areas without fixed seatings, there is an exception. Where approved by the building official, the actual number of occupants for whom each occupied space, floor, or building is designed, although less than the determination by calculation, shall be permitted to be used in the determination of the design or occupancy load. And that's where I'm going. Right now, because of this pandemic, there's no way we can cram as many people into that building as that the architect is trying to tell me can go in there. There is a provision, as you see on there, for that third exit door, which has been the stickler by the bar. So I'm hoping that you guys would consider, because of how this pandemic has hurt small business owners, to allow them to go in to begin with at an occupancy load of less than 50. And then as the business grows or gets back on its feet, there is a provision there that we can always put in that door. You're shaking.
I guess, let's say that the pandemic winds way down and then Christmas time of this year, you have need for more capacity. How are we going to get the door?
We can put it in at any time at that point,
Yeah.
I would think. I just don't, it's just a big expense right now for us, because
Okay.
as a
let's-
building holder, we were be the ones that put it in probably.
First of all, we would really like to have the door. That door can be emergency exit. And it doesn't have to be a regularly used door.
And that's what it would be. That's what it's designed for.
Okay, yeah, what?
It's an emergency exit.
Okay, and once that is there, then whether anything happens in here in the restaurant or anything else, the door is still there. Now, in order to try to help with the expense of the whole building, I don't know what a door costs, but there is a piece of legislation going through the legislature this year that will allow you to make an application for RHID for the second floor renovation, which will help you immensely with the rest of the deal. It will not help you with the restaurant, but we would support you in help with that RHID if that bill passes, to save you money on the second floor, which will end up being the apartments and everything that you can go forward with at that point and utilize RHID. Up until this point, RHID has not been available to downtown structures. This is being considered so that small towns in Kansas can look to gain housing in their downtown area. And so this would be a piece, we would like to send you that legislation to look at, but really the fluid part of trying to get that emergency door, from my standpoint, the right thing to do is to do it up front. The chairs is a fluid thing. The 75-foot puts us right there. It's next to the door. Everybody coming back goes to the right to use the restrooms. Nobody is going beyond the bar or the kitchen unless we have an emergency. So it's not a deal there. And so from my standpoint, and I'll allow the other commissioners to say something, we really would like to have the door planned to begin with, because at any point in time, the chair count can change. So I turn it over to the two commissioners.
Well, in my opinion, I don't know, I'll let Larry speak to that in a minute, but this was put in here for a reason. It's put in there to save lives if there was a fire to break out in there to get people out. To me, that's of utmost importance over and above whatever expense might be involved in putting that exit door in there. I agree with the mayor. I think that door needs to go in before, because we can't police it, and who's going to police it if you have 50 or 51 people in there? You don't know at any one time. So I would say the safest thing to do and the most prudent thing to do would be to go ahead and get that door in.
I would agree with what Gary said. My interest in this thing as well is the safety of the people that are in there. And the fact is that if we break away from what it needs to have done and something happens, that person, those people, that company, whatever, are going to come to the city commission and say, hey, you guys agreed to this, and now my brother-in-law got burned in a fire or whatever. I'm not interested in that. I'm interested in putting the door in and doing it like the book says and go down the road.
The other thing is that is the most convenient place if you have a
Yeah.
fire in the kitchen for kitchen personnel to get out.
That's exactly right.
So that's, you don't know. I did look at a drawing on Friday that you may have considered putting a full wall at the end of the bar there before the door. But I think that from my standpoint, that would be a bad idea and a wasted money, because you want your bar person to go back and forth, or kitchen person to go back and forth to serve anybody sitting at the bar. So you really need an opening there, but that's your choice.
I guess I don't know where you.
Where the end of the bar there, where you got.
Yeah,
those
there's
two-
going to be a partial wall. It's not going to go clear up.
Okay, well, there was one drawing I saw that
Mhm.
would have that a solid wall and close that opening, but I hope you wouldn't do that.
Oh, no.
Okay, all right.
This-
So that's where we're coming
yeah.
from. We really would like to have an emergency door there. That puts us 75 feet. It doesn't matter where it is, and it doesn't matter what changes. You don't have to worry about it. We can accommodate more chairs. We can accommodate even a change in what Nafis or somebody else is doing in terms of restaurant work. That would still make that door even more needed. I'll ask Brian or Virgil if they have anything they would like to say.
Hey, I just wanted to add that one of the early concerns was the ADA ramp that would have to come off there. And if you were to build an ADA ramp to code, it would be 7-8 feet long. I found provision in the code that says you don't have to have that as an accessible exit. So you don't have to put a ramp there at all.
That would cut costs down.
Yeah,
somewhat.
so I just wanted to point that out too.
That's a good thing then, is it's an emergency door, we won't have a ramp.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I understand. Yeah. that's-
Okay,
go ahead.
Virgil, do you have anything?
No, sorry. No, I'm okay mostly. I just, I want to make it clear that Ryan and TJ have looked at this at length, okay? And it's my opinion that they've done their best to be fair and to try to help you. So I don't want you to feel like we're looking for reasons to say no. We're trying to help you find the best answer that's best for everyone in the community and you.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, TJ.
I would say that we try to be consistent with everything that we do and looking at it and interpreting the code. And this would be consistent with what we have done in the past and what we will stay doing in the future. And we do follow the code based off of the restaurant being the occupancy. So if it's a restaurant, I understand that there's different restaurants that do different things, but we stay consistent with it being a restaurant occupancy. So we require the same out of everybody to allude to what the mayor was saying, to account for those changes that will happen in the future if possible.
I would like to say that we do appreciate the work that's being done by you downtown. It helps to have the vitality of downtown to continue on. we really think if you don't have a ramp, put in the door, that's about as economical as we can get. And then we want to work with you if the state legislature passes this current law to try to get you qualified for an RHID.
Can you tell me what
grant.
those initials stand for?
Rural Housing Incentive.
Okay.
So basically what that would do, if this is passed, it would extend the additional increment that's created by your improvements to the upstairs could be actually foregone for a certain amount of time and go back into, you'd pay your taxes as normal, and whatever the additional increment is could go back into development of those upstairs apartments. But it's subject to that being housing up at the top. So if you develop that, that's how that would work.
So if you put apartments up on top, the incremental change in the property tax could go to offset your cost of putting those apartments in, is the translation.
So basically you'd get a rebate for the additional value that you added for the housing
Okay.
up to the
Yeah,
north. So up on the,
I'm familiar with that stuff.
Yeah, so hopefully, from county treasurer times. And so hopefully that will more than offset with, if it goes through, more than offset the cost of the door between the two different things. May not be done simultaneously, but we will help you for the entire downtown project ultimately to be affordable for you.
Well, again, my request is, yes, there's a place for the door. Emergency exit only. With the pandemic and the way things are, to start out, well, I think there's, what did I count up? 38 seats in here, or 42? I don't remember what it was. Have to add them up. Yeah. 38 to 40 patrons in there currently.
Right.
To be able to put off putting that door in for a year or two. It will go in eventually, just not immediately.
can you, TJ, can you speak to the way occupancy's set aside? And just so,
Well-
I know there's a couple of the commissioners that you've talked to, but just so you can clear that up.
Well, keeping in line with the exceptions in the book.
So actually, the exception is to reduce that occupancy that's put in there so that we based everything off of square footage is how we figured those up. And then if we come in and we look at your tables and chairs and there is a layout that's impeding that, or you have more chairs and tables in there, then we reduce that occupancy based off of that. But that puts more objects in the way, which means that we definitely need that additional exit. That's why we stay consistent with the square footage and establishing all the exits from 75 walking feet. And then we reduce the occupancy because of the obstructions to get to those exits, if that makes sense.
What obstructions are you referring to?
Tables and chairs, anything that could, that you lay out when you have a business like that, and they change those.
Our desire is to go ahead and put the door in.
Well,
Right? But
eventually
at the
mine is
first,
too.
I think we have a unanimous opinion of the commission. And so we would like to do that. I know that we have a pandemic, but I do think that in the very near future, in the popularity of David's product, that he is going to start to spring up, and it won't be a problem. Now, I don't know if you escalate his rents on business or what you do. That's not my part of the equation, but we really would like to have that door from the very beginning. Yes.
I take donations. It's going to cost around $5,000 to put that thing in.
Costs a lot more than that for a life.
Yeah.
Well, I don't see it being a fire hazard in there. There's no open flames. There's no heat other than the thermostat and the air conditioner, that kind of thing. But This is not a cooking kitchen.
Understand. And our feeling is that we will go with the 75 foot.
I agree.
In an exit.
Well, we're really kind of just barely under 75 feet. By the time the measurement that the architect did was from the back corner, the furthest one would be back corner of the one bathroom out to the front. He was measuring from the corner of the wall behind the sink. Nobody stands up next to that wall in front of a sink. And so you're still a little less than 75 feet travel distance. So I'm just to let you know, that's the travel distances.
Yeah.
Probably about 73 feet.
Yeah.
Even with the obstacles as they are currently laid out.
Our feeling is that that side entrance is a needed thing.
Could we appeal to the state fire marshal and see what they say?
Yes, you're always able to appeal to the state fire marshal.
For the exceptions in the code?
Yeah. You're welcome to do that.
I just wanted a delay in putting that in,
Yeah.
like a year.
I understand. If the state fire marshal wants to accept the liability, you can write to him. We are not going to accept the liability if there's a fire for not having to do it.
Well, again, the code keeps you out of that liability with the exceptions, with the number of chairs that are in there.
I'll let
That's
the,
an accurate statement of how liability works, but from what I'm hearing from the commission, they are not willing to sanction the exception, so then you have to consider your own.
I see.
And we'll provide you whatever information you want in contacting the state fire marshal's office if you want to do that.
Okay. Is there a city building official here? A designated city building official?
Yes.
Who? I see. What are your certifications in? But not commercial. I see.
But the fire chief is certified for, and for that part of the code, and that we're doing it on the basis of fire code. So if you don't think we're interpreting the fire code correctly, then we are more than willing to either help you contact the state fire marshal or set up a meeting where we can have a meeting, hopefully here, where you don't have to travel, to you to go ahead and if you get a different opinion, and we make this exception based on the state fire marshal, that's the way it is.
Okay.
But if you want us to set up a meeting, we would set up the meeting.
We just need to get this project moving forward.
Okay, if we go forward to set up a meeting with state fire marshal, you and city people, would that be okay?
Let me visit with my husband
Okay,
about this because we've kind of exhausted all our funds
okay,
on this building already.
yeah.
And
If he will come down here and visit with us and you in a meeting, we'd love to host that.
I can tell you, he hates this kind of thing. So
Huh?
I'll just discuss it with him
Okay,
and see what he says.
okay,
Otherwise, we'll just proceed as drawn on Branda's.
Brent, and he'll put that door in and he'll be able to stamp.
Now,
his
he
plan.
has it in on his drawings. I mean, we
Okay.
do have that. So,
Okay.
and I understand that. So,
Okay, all right, well then, if he has that door in, he should be able to stamp his plans.
okay,
Okay,
thank you.
yeah,
got your jacket, I believe.
you might get
Might
away,
not-
you
might-
might get away with not having it today, not last week.
That's right. Thank goodness.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything else in study session or a regular session?
You still have the
I know. Okay,